Just answering questions with waptek. If you believe there isn't a situation outside your home where a gun would be beneficial, why do you discuss ways of making projectile weapons for self-defense? Your arguments apply equally to non-lethal weapons. Why do I tell you how to make something cheaper, almost impossible to regulate, almost impossible to make illegal, that makes it to where you have the ability to have control, power, and have nobody have control over what you make? A firearm is usually made in the United States by a large corporation that makes a bunch of money making sweet deals with the U.S. government. And we live in a country where guns are regulated in some areas heavily. And even the ATF has to admit that what I talk about, which is almost always, not always, but almost always, a pistol grip only firearm, is the least regulatable gun. They make definitions for pistols. This isn't a pistol. Shotguns, because it has a buttstock. This isn't a shotgun. And rifles, same thing, but smaller bore with rifling. The ATF had to admit at one point that they can't regulate it because they don't have definitions, and they'd have to get Congress to make a new definition for it. Next, if you're in an area that's decided to regulate firearms, pistol grip only shotguns, and some other kinds of guns, if you make it a muzzle loader, they don't have laws against it. I'm helping you make it to where the government and the gun industry can't regulate you. I'm taking away their ability to control and keep track of what you do. Why do I do that? Because it's difficult to find this information out, because you literally have to annoy the ATF into admitting they have no power over you. Next, my situation in my area doesn't change because you're coming up with an argument. I have never been in a situation where having a firearm, or a pistol, or rifle, or whatever, would have made the situation better. It probably would have made it worse, but I didn't need it. And the majority of people in this country are the same way. And that doesn't change whether or not I'm going to answer a question. How do I build a firearm to protect myself? Because I'm not in an area where I can run away or stand my ground. I don't have a gun. And I can't afford one. And every design I come up with costs you, I'm not shitting you, either $0 because the material's there, or about $50. The only thing cheaper is a Russian break-action shotgun I recently found. It's $9. I am doing something simple. It was hard to find this information because the government and the industry wants to regulate access. I want to remove that. And the government versus the industry, some people think, talks you into being afraid and tells you, well, you should be careful about that. Why? Even people who go on YouTube who are Second Amendment advocates who say, I'll never register a gun, immediately publicly disclose everything, including the serial number in some cases, and act like that's not the same thing. I don't want the government knowing it voluntarily. I want them to spy on me and get it, so I can bitch. Meanwhile, if you make a firearm and don't put it on YouTube, none of you have seen me actually with a firearm. There is nothing to regulate or get a subpoena over. One of us in this discussion is hacking, the other one is watching me. Now let's talk about another incident. I give away this information for free, and I always use things that are patents that are expired as the basis for it. And yes, I'm developing a pump-action muzzle loader. Look that up. An auto-reloading muzzleloader exists before I'm going to adapt the patent. Now let's move on to something totally unrelated. waptek, why are you trying to debunk something you have never tried yourself? Right, in a video where I said I tried this myself and found out that it didn't work, and everyone who's an advocate and believer of said subject has also done so and found out it didn't work. If you do enough research, you'll find out a lot about this. I did. That's why I was able to do what you claim I didn't do, which is to build the damn thing. And it's not a gun. This is some other completely unrelated item. An item that somebody said he came up with that would save the world and fight the bad people in the oil industry or the automotive industry or both. You'll have to read what he really said and why it doesn't make any damn sense. And He said he was being suppressed by the government and never once just showed people exactly how to build it, even though he claimed it worked perfectly, until you asked him, can you show me it works? And he says, I'm still working on it. Now remember, I'm not suppressing your ability to have your right to keep and bear arms. I'm encouraging you to do things that will make it almost impossible to do it. In fact, to the point that I'm telling you not to be an idiot and tell everybody you have firearms. Tell people you know how to make them? Maybe. But don't tell them you have any. In fact, I don't have any. I just have some conveniently milled pieces of metal. Now let's talk about the next part. Let's talk about this invention this person's talking about. It's just funny. It was a shut-up order put in place just like Tesla. Nobody ever shut up Tesla. If you would read anything, I mean, seriously, are you an idiot? Tesla was a Z-formation snapping bitch to people. No, he wasn't shut up. They both was killed and the idea went away. Nobody murdered either of them. Both of them died under similar circumstances. Old, penniless, because they were idealistic. Well, at least Tesla was idealistic. The other guy we're talking about wasn't. Tesla was idealistic to the point that he would rather die than compromise. But I do love the fact that at the end of his life, he played a joke. Now the oil giants will do anything to make money and even kill. Yeah, I know that. But that has nothing to do with Tesla, and it has nothing to do with Charles Nelson Pogue. He left a bunch of patents open. They were never suppressed. There's never even a single example anyone has been able to find of anybody trying to erase it, litigate it, or encumber any of his patents. Next, his patents didn't bring up anything remarkable. They were considered improvements. They were considered weak patents. Well, that's a judgment by such... No, it's not a judgment. That's what engineers said. He used other people's designs and combined them together. That's good. And he was suppressed. No, he wasn't. Charles Nelson Pogue received money for his inventions. This is something you can't find anymore. I found it the first day I looked it up. A bunch of companies used Charles Nelson Pogue's miracle 200 mile per gallon carburetor. A carburetor, if you're not aware of it, can get 200 miles to the gallon if you want to. But what horsepower is it? How fast is it moving? Yes, that matters. Can it accelerate? Charles Nelson Pogue's atomizing or vaporizing carburetor was used by people who made generators and equipment like continuous moving things like conveyor belts. That was used for a while. The reason is that he made what I would call a narrow power band carburetor for an internal combustion machine or engine. In a car, you have to be able to accelerate through a large range of RPMs. That means that you can't make the carburetor resonate with the system at a perfect level. And anybody out there who's ever tried to do this with an engine, you can make it really efficient or have a lot of power or both. If you do it right, you got to trick it. But you can't have it change speed. You can't. Once you get the thing up to a certain speed, you can get it into a sweet spot. That's what you do. A lot of them have a high efficiency mode. Some of you know about cars that were higher efficiency at 70, others at 60. That's what he did, only he made it a low RPM so it would use less fuel. The idea was to make a high efficiency carburetor, and it was. But eventually he got tired of people putting it on generators and other things that were practical because it made him look bad, because he made a claim that it would work in a car and you could go 0 to 60 at some speed. He was very vague about things. He always changed his story. And whenever he demonstrated his car, people noticed that it would change sound from the idle mode when he had the hood up to when he closed the hood, and it would immediately switch to a different carburetor, it sounded like, because it did. He also switched to a set of fuel tanks that he had hidden in the body with anti-slosh material like metal mesh in it. He was a huckster and a liar. He made a really high efficiency, low horsepower, no revving up and down, a synchronous carburetor. It would work great for running a generator because you run at one speed constantly. It had a certain maximum or minimum level you had to draw it down. If you're running a generator, 1,000 watts, fine. That's that's about a horsepower and a half or so, with efficiency problems, and it worked fine. And yeah, it would get the equivalent if you were moving just a human being, not the car, of about 200 miles to the gallon. But the point is, you couldn't change speed. That means you can't stop. and I'm not kidding about that, if you took off your foot off of it by disengaging the clutch, it would stop because it was overrunning itself. It had to be matched. It's perfectly good for running a minecart, and I mean really a minecart, or a bunch of other things, and it was used for that. And then he said he wasn't going to let people use his patents, wouldn't license it anymore because people found out he was using it for something practical. He never once made it work for real. And I'll spend the rest of the video reading some things. But he could have done what I do. Release it to the public, give it away, and not ask a dime for it. Or say, if you use it and make money, give me money. Shareware it. But no, it was the government suppressing him, and everybody who's read his diagrams have found out that it doesn't work the way he said it does. Conspiracy of the government, or the only person suppressing Charles Nelson Pogue's invention from revolutionizing this world was him, because he wouldn't let you build the damn thing. His invention didn't do what he said it did. He wanted investor money after he said it worked fine. When he talked to the investors, he says it doesn't really work. He tried to get gag orders. 1936, Automotive Industries magazine. Sketches failed to show any features unknown to carburetors. That means they were able to look through his patent and find the prior art list and find out he was not duplicating, but basing it off of other people's carburetors that did almost the same thing. He did make an improvement, and instead of implementing it, he lied. Gives no warrant for crediting the remarkable results claimed in his developments from 1927. No one reputable was allowed to see the device in action, not have a chance to measure the results. When people demanded, put up or shut up, prove that it works, he stopped making claims and disappeared. He died a pauper because he was being an idealist, or he didn't want people to know that what it was a carburetor that would work on something less powerful than a lawnmower and run a generator for maintaining lights in a mine, or running a conveyor belt. A bunch of really practical things he could have made a fuck ton of money at. But no, he wanted his reputation to be with him. And he wasn't murdered. He died in a rest home in the 80s. And Nikola Tesla died as an old man, a pauper. Because most people who do really create something brilliant don't worry about the financial gain. They worry about making something cool. Tesla was like that. This guy, on the other hand, wasn't. He is not like Tesla. Tesla, when he was dying, he made sure there was an arranged letter. This is my extremely important box. It'll revolutionize the world. It's a terrible, destructive device. He did it as a joke. He made a really impressive-looking resistor or capacitor substitution box with knobs and things on it. It's really cool-looking. He literally made sure that after he died, somebody would have a good laugh. He didn't leave a death ray. It was a piece of equipment that every technician is required to make to prove they know what the fuck they're doing with electricity at the time. And it was an assignment he gave people he taught. It was the one he did to prove that he was an actual electrical technician. Earth-shattering. Some choose to believe the suppression theory, unlike the fact, which is he made a bunch of stupid claims, Charles Nelson Pogue, probably while having a beer with some friends, and couldn't put up or shut up, and try to get people to invest in him when they were interested. Lots of people were. Nobody suppressed this except him. He did not have something worth showing. And some of you want to believe in the 200 mile a gallon, actually it's a 400 mile per gallon carburetor system. You make the car capable of carrying a single person, and you make it run really slow, and it will go 500 miles to the gallon. The current world record is about that number. But it doesn't rev up from 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. The only one suppressing any of these ideas is the people who came up with them, or nobody. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And enjoy my free content where I try to help you find out an easy answer to the questions I had that took weeks to answer in some cases. And yes, eventually I will have a pump-action muzzle loader, because legally it's a muzzle loader, and it will fire just as good as any other shotgun you've seen. Because I can. Can you?